So hello guys, welcome back to another video. And for this video we're going to be looking at Midtrans API. So I guess Midtrans is more of a Indonesian company, payment company, I'm not sure, but that's what we're going to be integrating here. And as you can notice, since we're doing this in development, I'm no longer in production here. I'm currently working on Sandbox for Midtrans, right? And when you log into Midtrans Sandbox, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to integrations here. And when you come to integrations here, you should see a step-by-step flow of what we are going to be needing. So you're going to click on download plugin, and you're going to switch from plugin here, right, to build yourself. Now when you go to build yourself, you can see the documentation. So when you open these up, it should give you a place where you can go to maybe the core API or that details. Now what we are more interested in here is getting payment links, right? So we don't really need to do like card all that stuff. We are interested in making what's it called, making Midtrans payments using a link. All right, so there are several payment methods, I think. Payment link. So we want to do payment links here. I think this is what they have, but I think we need to do API references for this. So let's go to API reference and let's look for payment links, right? So payment methods, card, payment links. Where is this? Payment links. Come on, my memory is failing me. Yeah, payment link. Here you go. So on the payment link, we need to look at create payment link. So these are all the available parameters you can pass in there. So if you need, but what I'm going to show you is just a simple way of doing it. And we can go ahead and, if you like, you could add these methods yourself, but for me I'm going to show you how to simply create a payment link and get paid faster. So what you're going to be having as an example is you're going to have a place where you can click on the payment link here, and when you're doing this in development, you notice that there's a kind of a speech mark that gets added there. So if you remove it, we should come here and you can enter your details, right, payment details, all that stuff. And I'm going to try to do payment with Brimo. Now remember, I'm in the sandbox, so this is going to ask me for all these details. I'm going to click payment, all this, and at that particular same time, when payments fail or are successful, we should get a webhook data coming back to us, telling us whether the payment has been successful, pending, or denied, right? So that's what we need to do. Before we begin, we are going to need something called ngrok, right? So you're going to go to ngrok, go to ngrok.com. Now the reason for ngrok is, since we are working on our localhost, we need a way that we can give links to Midtrans, so that when a payment has been initiated in our development local machine, we can try and kind of go ahead and get a response back instead of having to host the API online, so that we can work with it. Now when you create an ngrok account, you're going to get this particular thing here. So what you're going to do is you're going to copy that and you're going to come here and open CMD. So we want to install ngrok in our machine so that we can simulate this. Now the next thing you're going to do, once that has been installed, you need to copy this and register this particular signature, right? So what you're going to do is come to this place and you're going to say yes here. Say yes. Now what remains is for you to do the signature. Now you're done. Now you can close this. Great. Now since we are done with that, what you're going to do next is we are going to now initiate a session for ngrok. But before we do that, let's first of all go ahead and create our API. So I'm going to delete everything that I have right now. So on Midtrans, I'm going to delete this code here, and we want to now recreate this code again from scratch. And the way we are going to do it is, I want this video to be as straightforward as possible so that we don't really get confused all over the place. So how we are going to do that If you're going to go to this payment link here and you are interested in this node fetch, these details here, but what you might notice is that it has no way of verifying our code. So we're not really going to use this. Instead, what you're going to do is we're just going to copy parts of this, which is going to be the URL and all that, and you're going to go to our code here, create a new custom endpoint, right? And you're going to make this on orders. Let's call it mid trans, right? So there we go. So we're going to remove everything we have here, and let us do paste that code that we just downloaded here. So we're going to change a few things. So here, when we come to this particular place here, we are going to just change a few things here. So I'm just going to make this a little bit tidy. So we want to change this header here, and just let's make it accept. So we want to pass accept, and we also need to pass the content type here. So make this capital C like that, and capital T like this. All right, now the next thing you need to do is we need to pass the authorization. All right, now in the authorization, this is going to be basic, right? So it's going to be basic authorization. Now the next thing we will need here after basic authorization is our server key, right? So if you go to the documentation here, you notice that they are telling you for this kind of authentication, you need authentication, which is basic authentication. And they are telling you here that validates HTTP requests using basic authentication methods, which is why in our code here we are using this basic. And it says that the username is your server key. Now, how do you get your server key? You are going to go to mid-trans and go to settings, access keys, right? So we need this server key here. So we're going to copy this server key, and you're going to go back to radsystems, and let's create a variable called auth keys, server key. So we're going to do const server key is going to be equals to that value we just copied there. Now the next thing you're going to do is create another constant, which is, if you come back to the code here, they are telling you that the authorization header value represented by outstring is base 64 encoded string of your username and password separated by comma, format detail, all that stuff. Right, so what you're going to do now is wrap this server key inside a base 64 encoded string. So what you're going to do is go back to that system, and you're going to do auth. Let's just do auth. Let's just call it auth string, right? And let's say we want now to make this base 64. So we're going to do buffer dot. So now this is how we want to kind of encrypt it. So we're going to say buffer from. So when you say buffer from, you need to provide the string of where you are trying to make this a base 64. So what you're going to do is say buffer from, and we now need to pass the server key as a string. So you're going to do server key as a string like that, and put that full colon there, and that is all. So you're going to come here and do, now we need to make it a string since we already converted it, and now this string is going to be base 64 like that. And just like that, we have successfully converted this into a base 64 string. Right, now that being done, we now need to come here where we have the basic, and we need to pass this out string as a string inside here. So we need to pass this as a variable. So we're going to paste that in there. So remember, when you want to add a string inside a variable, we use these special speech marks, not this type of speech marks or this type of speech marks. All right, now that has been done. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to convert this to maybe like a data or something, right? So what we need to do is just change this. So here, instead of body, let me just call this data, and we don't really need to do this JSON stringify here. Just remove it, so we can have this looking something like that. So you can come here and you have gross amount. So the gross amount is supposed to be the amount of our product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to initiate these things can be outside here, so we can put this outside. And here what I'm going to do is create a const amount, which is going to be equals to the body, sorry, rec.body, because they're going to be kind of doing this in the front end, right? So this is the amount that is going to be coming from the front end. So we now need to get this amount and replace it here. Alright, so we're going to say amount. Okay, so the gross amount is supposed to be the amount of your order or other stuff, right? Now the order ID. Now there's a problem with the mid-trans. So every time you try to do an order using this kind of method, it kind of fails and it tells you that it's already taken. So the best way that I found you can do that is creating a string of, maybe when you're creating your order, attach maybe a date time stamp to it, maybe add a time stamp to it, so that it kind of doesn't have to keep giving you those errors. So how we can do that is we can go top here and we can say const order, let's do order ID is going to be equals to, so this is how you need to be doing when you're generating your orders for mid-trans, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to do unique. Okay, so you're going to sorry, what am I doing? Okay, so you need to do this. You're going to do maybe old order. So you're going to join the order with that date type, right? So you're going to come here and you're going to do maybe let's say date dot now. So this should get the date time now, and I think that is it. Yep. Close that and let's have that. So good. So now that we have this order ID here, we can copy this and we can paste it right here. Okay, so we have the amount and the order ID. Down below here we have the usage. So the usage, basically what they're telling you here is that the usage, if you go to usage limit, it says maximum number of allowed paid or successful paid transaction. Not each successful payment will consume a usage quota. Consumer to make payment, e.g. waiting back transfer, go iris will temporarily hold a quota if it is abandoned or unpaid. So this basically means that this usage limit basically allows you to have like a way that you can put orders waiting, right? So we can have that or leave it because it's optional. So you can have it or leave it, it's optional, and it's an integer. However, we can just leave it there. All right, so we go back to radsystems now. We are done with that. So the next thing we need to do here after this is we now need to do the Axios. So we're going to do Axios, and we now need to pass the URL, which is this, right? So we need to pass the URL here, and now after the URL we need to pass the options here. Copy these options and paste it here. Okay, now that we have that, we can now do dot then. So this, we are handling the promise, so this handles promises. So you're going to do response. All right, and now what you need to do here is we need to maybe console log, or maybe return console.log response dot data. At the same time, we can return console.data. But before we do that, what we can do is we can do a conditional check. We can say if, okay, so we can do if response dot data and response dot data dot payment URL. So this is a link, this is a data that contains a URL. However, so that I don't confuse you, let's just remove it for now and let's just do this. So if this data is successfully captured, what we can do is return res.ok, and we need to do response dot data. At the same time, we can console it here. We can console log it there so that we can see what we get, and we can do else. Let's do console.log payment failed. Right, so we have that. Okay, now that being done, you can do maybe a catch. So since we have already done a then here, what you can do is a catch. So you can come here and do a dot catch. So this basically will catch any errors that may occur during that period, right? So you can do catch error here. Okay, and here we go. So let's just come here and say if error dot response. All right, so we can do maybe console log this, but now instead of just casually doing that, you can console log the error message itself. So you can just come here and do error like that dot response dot data. Okay, so now we have an endpoint that's supposed to be doing all this stuff. However, so that we can test whether this is working, I'm going to temporarily remove this amount here and let me adjust my own amount. Now remember, our endpoint is at mid-trans. So I'm going to copy that path and I'm going to publish the project. Now I'm going to open Postman so that I can test my code, and I'm going to do localhost 8060 because this is where my API is running from, and I'm going to do API/path to the code, and I'm going to click on send. So this cannot send because radSystem by default creates get requests. They're going to go to custom endpoint mid-trans and change this from get to post like that. So publish, click on publish, and now we should be able to get that. Right, so this should send out, and there you go. So we get back a payment URL and an order ID. So as you can see, we have this order ID looking something like this. So if you generate it again, you should notice that now the order ID changes. So if you open this link, it should take you to a payment gateway. There you go. So now that we are sure that works, what we can do now is we can integrate this to our front end now comfortably without any issues. So we're going to go to our cart. So I have a page for carts, which is this here, which is this page for carts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come here, have this page for cart, and here we go. So I have this button called make payment. So what I want to do now is have a button which will make, when I click on this make payment button, it's going to open a small modal which is going to give me the option to select which payment method I have, because I have already another payment method I already integrated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to PrimeView website documentation, because remember I'm using PrimeView for PrimeView and Node-RED. So I'm going to open PrimeView, right? And inside PrimeView, I'm going to look for a component called dialog. Excuse me. So let's look for a component called dialog, right? I think this one, something like that. Okay, so we want it to be at the bottom. So there we go. So we want this dialog to be at the bottom, right? So I can grab this just the way it is and go to radsystems, cut list page, and I'm going to add a new custom component, add a new section, add a new custom component like this, and paste that dialog here. And this is going to be equals to open pay options, right? So this is going to be a variable we are going to create. So you want, when a button is clicked, this open options should be set to true. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come here and create a variable called const open play options is equals to reference of false. So by default it's going to be false, right? Okay, so now the next thing you need to do for that dialog is we are going to change this position, remove this, and we want the position to be automatically set to bottom by default, right? Okay, so now this variable we created here again, we need to now attach it to a button. Okay, so instead of doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and put this here, and we're going to set it to true. So when I click on this button, I'm going to see this model. So let's try and make that happen. So if I come back here, click on payment, it should open this model at the bottom. But there are several options that you can have, maybe, which would be an sidebar, right? I think a sidebar, that one. So what you can do is this sidebar, you can just grab it, copy that, and let's put it here instead of the dialog. Let's put it here instead of the dialog. So I'm just going to take this and replace it with this. There you go. And okay, publish. So in our application, when you click on this, it should open this dialog. So now we want to have buttons at the bottom here that should display maybe pay with this, pay with that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and grab maybe some few items, right? So we want to add that option to pay with mid-trans. So first thing I'm going to do is get mid-trans logo, copy image address. So let me see if we can open that up. It's an SVG. So don't know, save image as, cancel mid-trans. Yeah, I don't think that we can get the it seems like let's do mid-trans logo. Okay, so visit, save image as JPEG. Okay, so copy image address, and let's see if we can have it display here. There we go. Right, so we're going to go here, and I'm looking for maybe like a list or something. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to radsystems, copy that, go to cards here, and on the list page, custom view, I should be able to get this just the way it is. Copy that, and I'm going to now go back to our custom view. There you go, and I'm going to paste this right here. Only that, now we need to make this this image. Now we need to just change this to be the URL that we have here. So I'm just trying to come up with a simple UI design. So replace that with that, and there we go. So here we can just say, so we don't need these other things here. We don't need that. We don't need this, and we don't need this. Okay, so here you're going to say mid-trans, right? Like that. Okay, now this click event, we don't need it for now, but we're going to add it back, and click. So let's see what we get. So come here, click on payment. You should get mid-trans, right? Now the what you're going to do here is you're going to give this a border. Let's make this border one. Border one, surface border, hover, BG, primary, and then I want to change this text here from font bold to font medium. Then I want to make this large, text large, like that. Okay, publish that and click on that, and we have this looking something like that. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to come here and let's do let's give it a border radius of style is equals to border radius 18 pixels, like that. Let's make it important. Good. And we need to do a margin bottom of 3. Okay, now what you're going to do here is we are going to make this W full. Then we're going to copy this just where it is, and we're going to put it down here because we now need to have like flutter wave here, like that. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to come here and look for flutter wave. Okay, so I want to get the logo for flutter wave and copy image. Okay, so I'm just going to look for flutter wave logo. Okay, images. Okay, so I want to grab that. Flutter wave logo, save image as. Okay, let me copy the link, and I'm going to go to radsystems and replace this link with the flutter wave logo. Okay, and publish. So if I go back, click here, we have flutter wave and mid-trans. So now when I click on mid-trans, now we should get a payment link from mid-trans, right? So let's go ahead and now do the code for that. So I'm going to open this. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to so this is the code we had done for flutter wave. Okay, so we can change that to flutter wave payment. So if you need to know how to do this, check out the video I created earlier for making flutter wave payments. So I'm just going to copy this code, and the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to come here, and inside the code for flutter wave I now need to have a click event. So I want when this container is clicked like this, it's going to make the flutter wave payment. So now what we need to do next is we need to now create the function that's supposed to make payment for mid-trans. So I'm just going to copy the same thing here, and I'm going to do this. Right, so I'm going to change this from flutter wave to mid-trans, like that. Okay, so copy this code, and okay, before we do that, I need to do a few things. So this amount here, the purpose of this video is to show you how to do this, but I'm not really going to be covering how to get the total amounts here. So you're going to find a way that you can get the total amounts from this cut. Then you're going to dynamically add that amount here. Now this amount that we have here has to be an exact match of the variable here, which is supposed to be the rec.body. So this has to exactly match that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to now remove this so that we can now automatically pass our amount, and that is it. So okay, so now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go back to our code here, and we're just going to maybe say we want to send 100 RPs. Right, so now you notice we have a variable here called paylink. So the pay link is going to be the variable which is going to be displaying the payment link for us, whether or not we are making a Flutterwave payment or mid-trans payment. So what I'm going to do now, mid-trans does not really display this response or data status success, so we're going to leave it like that. And this is pay value is equals to true. I'm going to show you what it does in just a few. Right, so let me just hide that. So this pay link dot value link, we want when we click on it, it should display all that data for us. Now here, this is the path to our API that we are passing. Now, for example, if you need to make this post request function, you don't really have to keep copying it from here. There's a way you can get it from radsystems by scrolling down to here. Now, everything on the right side has to be the value that you're trying to post to. So everything on this side has to be something that you have created in your backend code, which is accepting this post request. Now, the other thing you need to change is just the path. That's all. And now, when this has been done, so when this API call has been done to the backend, you should get this response.data, which in return we are attaching to this pay link. Now, this pay link, you notice that it's using .value instead of just doing pay link is equals to response. The reason why we are doing .value is because this pay link is a reactive variable, right? So it's an empty string which is reactive. So that's why we are using .value. Right, so now what we need to do is, for this Flutterwave, I'm just going to change it to my code which is handling the pay Flutterwave function. I'm going to change that here, and there you go. All right, so now that we have that, you can click on OK, and you can go to your code here. One more thing, we can go to our code, and we now need to add the click event for when we want to make payment for mid-trans. So I'm going to go to this code here, and I'm going to add that click event. I'm going to do add click is equals to now that function for making mid-trans payment. Okay, right, so now what we need to do now is when you are completely comfortable with this, what you can do is here at the top we can display this variable which is called pay link, which should show us the link once this particular process has been successful. So if I click on this, I should get this link displaying here. Right, so if I click on publish, we can test our application now. Click on mid-trans, and you get the response here with the ID in the payment URL. If I click on Flutterwave, I should get the payment for Flutterwave here. Okay, right, so now what we need to do now is when this has been generated successfully, we need a way that we can attach this data here. So we are going to click on mid-trans. So on mid-trans, we are more interested in the payment URL. So what you're going to be attaching to the pay link is this particular payment URL. Now you're going to do that by going to mid-trans payment, and on response.data we need to do dot. Okay, so we need to do dot payment URL. So now when you click on mid-trans, we should only get payment URL here, specifically or strictly payment URL. So click on this, click on mid-trans, and there you go. However, you notice that for Flutterwave, we are still getting the whole thing. So how we're going to do that is we are going to go back here and go for Flutterwave. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do dot data, because remember, Flutterwave has a data here and then a link to the link. So dot data dot link. Good. So these two should now display a payment link for each step. So we get a payment link there, and for Flutterwave we get a payment link there. Now we need to make this payment link clickable. How we are going to do that is by going back here where we have this, and we are going to make this a link. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to make this A, and the href has to be dynamic. So we make it dynamic by adding a full column. This is basically going to tell you that it's going to tell Vue.js that this link is coming from a variable somewhere. So it's not manual. So there you go. And that pay link should be going there, and you can add a class which is equals to maybe let's say text orange 700. So that's the color of the text, and you want to make it font media. And I'm going to now do click here to complete transaction. Right, there we go. So this should display when we click on a link. So publish that, and when you come to make payment, you should see a link which displays here. Now if you click on this link, it should take you to the page where you can make the payment for Midtrans. Now if we go back to Flutterwave and you click on it, it should take you to Flutterwave payment gateway. There you go. Alright, so now that we are sure that that works, we need this to only be visible when we click these buttons. Now that is where this variable comes in. This is pay variable. So by default, it's going to be false, right? So we want when this payment Flutterwave has completed successfully, we want to make it true. And we want when this whole Midtrans function has been completed successfully, we want to make it also true. Okay. Alright, so what you're going to do now is we are going to go back to our code, which is here. There you go. And we need to kind of wrap all this inside that div like that. So I'm going to create a div here, and let's close this div at the bottom. So the reason for doing this is so that I don't have to keep adding the if condition both for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to say if is equals to. So this will only show when Midtrans is equals to false, because remember our variable here is called Midtrans is pay. So this is pay is equals to false, sorry. So if this is pay is equals to false and by default is equals to false, we want these containers to show like this. So we are going to do not is pay. So this is the equivalent of doing is pay is equals to false, but instead of doing all that details, we're just going to say is not pay. Now we have this link here, this link. We now need to show this link only if is pay is equals to true. So we're going to do if is equals to is pay is equals to true. But we don't need to keep doing this is equals to true, because by default when you say is pay, then it means it's true. So click on OK and let's publish that. Alright, so when you come here, you notice it does not appear, but if I click on this, everything else disappears and we only have that Midtrans. Okay, so what I can do here is I can come here and wrap this inside that div like that. And let's put it there. And what I'm going to do is let's do a class is equals to padding. Let's do padding 4 and let's do margin bottom 5. Click on OK and publish. So the reason for this is so that this just appears here somewhere within there. Right, so you can add an icon there if you like, and that will be it. So you can go to project menu, go to permissions, pick an icon. Let's do wallet, and there you go. X copy, go here, come here and put this here. Let's do I class is equals to that, style is equals to font size is equals to 1.2 rem, like that. There we go. And we can do class margin right to be 3, and let's click on that. So now make payment. transact. There you go. So what you can do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to make this div container part of this. So I'm going to get this if, and I'm going to put this here, and that should solve our issue. I'm going to come here, make payment mid-trans, and we should get this payment link here. And yeah, so this also was also part of the earlier code. So what I can do next is just remove some few things I had done here. I had done some few things here. We should be this view button, and I don't need this. There you go. So one more thing I'm going to do is change the color of this text from orange to blue. Finally, there we go. Now one last thing we need to do is when you now go and make payments on mid-trans here. So I'm going to open this link in a different browser. So when we come here and make payment to mid-trans here, we need a way to know whether the payment has been successful or not. So the way you do that is adding webhooks, right? So we are going to do that. We're going to start doing that by going to radsystems, custom endpoints, and we are going to create a new endpoint here, and let's call it other orders. Let's call it webhook, mid webhook. Let's just call it mid webhook. So this mid webhook should contain data of the response that we get back, whether the payment has been successful or failed. So I'm going to do rec.body. Okay, so this should return data, and this has to be a post request, so you're going to change that. Now when you go to radsystems and you publish this, what you're more interested in is the name or the path here. So you're going to get mid webhook, copy that, and you're going to go to Postman, and we can test it. So I'm going to replace this with mid webhook, and when I click on it, I should be able to see whether it's going to console log or not. So when I come here and I click on send, there we go. So this is working. Now we need to register this webhook to our ngrok. Remember, we installed ngrok when we started. So what you're going to do is you're going to open your CMD, and you're going to type ngrok http, the route at which your server is running at. So in my application, my server is running on port 8060. So I want to go here and say in my in my CMD 8060, and now we're going to get a link which can be used by anybody who wants to now demo our application over the internet, even though it's on a local machine. So I'm now going to replace this 8060, this one, with the link we just generated. So when you click on demo, you should see that a request is going to be made here. So I'm going to click on send, and you should notice that a request to orders has been made, and now you notice it here. So we can do read 2221111, and when we send it, it should appear here, and in your ngrok you should see that somebody accessed your link. So now we need this link to be added in mid-trans dashboard. So you're going to go to integrations, all right, and you're going to click on download, is it, I think, configuration or something, yeah, and you're going to add your links here. So for example, I've already added them, so I'm just going to replace them. So you need to read this and know what you need to do. Like, this is a payment notification URL. The address will be send notification via HTTP post request this is this. So this should be whether the payment has been successful or not. Recalling this, you can also do the same. This will be a pay account notification, will be sent to pay account notification via HTTP. So if you want, you can have separate endpoints to handle this, but for me, I'm just adding the same for everyone, and I'll click on save. Okay, errors, mismatch, prohibited this mismatch from being saved. Okay, notification, save and exist. So it seems like there's an issue with something here. Okay, so generally just try and do that. So that's what you're going to do. Let me just move this. All right, say that. HTTP, save next. Invalid format, HTTP, HTTPS. Okay, so orders, wi-fi.com. Mid-web hook. So this seems to be an issue. I don't know where it's coming from, but let me see. Save. Okay, so that was the issue. So the issue was that there was a space between the front part of it and the back. So here there was a space in between here. But let me just have that for payment notifications. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to generate a payment link. Okay, so let's just copy this and open it here. And I'm going to try and make a payment. So what you're going to realize is when I make a payment, I should get back a webhook response back here. So I'm going to use bpro, make payment, and in here now I get this response. So this should be a response whether the payment has been successful or not, but as you can see, it's currently pending. So I'm going to add maybe Wahome, and if this fails, we should get another webhook which should be saying that this payment has been denied. Now this data that you get here, you can just go ahead and update your database with it. So the code for updating your database is going to happen in webhooks here. So this webhook which you have just created, you won't write the code to update the database here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now insert a record, and I want to insert to my orders table here, right? So if I go back here, I can log in and go to my orders table. So let's do cards and let's do orders, right? So I'm just going to delete this. These are old orders from Flutterwave. There you go. So what I want to do now is when I come to this particular page here, custom endpoints, mid-trans webhooks. So I want to update the orders table. So I want to update a few things here. So everything on the right side is going to be a field you want to insert to on the table. So if we inspect our value here, it should be transaction status denied. So we want to insert the status here. So we're going to do status is equals to, but before we do that, we need to create a variable web hook data. It's going to be rec.body. So what you're doing here is we are attaching this response we get here to a variable called webhook data.body. So now when we get this back, we only need to kind of just call this once. So I'm just going to copy this, and you're going to say status is equals to webhook data, and we need the status here, like that, dot v. Right, now the next thing you need to do is you can come here and maybe get the anything else that you need, maybe the order number, which can be this. So you're going to come here and you're going to put a comma, and let's do order number, sorry, it's not equals to, because it's an object, you use full colon. I'm going to do webhook data dot webhook data dot this order ID, like that. There you go. The next thing you might need is the amount. Now the amount, you can get it from here, gross amount, and you're going to do webhook data dot gross amount. Great. Now in some situations you might be wanting to, instead of doing this transaction here, you might maybe need to skip it. So what you can do here is you can come here and do if webhook data dot status is equals to pending, then we do this, else we can just do console.log continue or whatever. So this is going to be if status is not equals to pending, you can just do this. However, you can do this. There are so many ways you can do this, only that I'm doing it this way. So this is going to prevent having to log this first transaction of pending. So you only want to know whether this has been successful or failed, right? So now the last thing you need to do now is, because you're trying to insert, you now need to change this table name here to be the name of the table you want to insert to, starting with capital letters. So I'm going to do orders, right? So when you click on that and you save, we should now be able to make a payment. So you can just come back here and click on pay now, and what you might notice is that okay, so it says results no longer available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and generate a payment again. So let's do login, let's go here, click payment, mid-trans, and we want to make the payment this way. So open, let's put it here, and let's try and make a payment. Okay, so Primo. Okay, so if you come back here, you notice that we have inserted into orders complete. So that should be a failed transactions. So if we come to orders here, where is this? You reload this, we should get this order details here. Now the status, the reason why the status is not being inserted is because mostly we mismatched the status field here. Yeah, so I used deny instead of status, right? So it should be status there because we are getting it from here. So it should be signature status, right? Signature status, transaction status, I think, is it? Yeah, transaction status. And if this is not equals to pending, we add that pending. All right, there you go. So click on OK and publish your application. And if you try, come back here, make payment, it should fail, whatever. Okay, so let's generate a new one. Copy, paste it. Brimo. There you go. So now if we go back here and check our orders, we have the status and this. So this seems doesn't like the filter didn't really work. So check that out. So try that out on your own and see if it works. And yeah, that's how you do it. So in case of any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I will try my best to answer them as soon as I see them. So I'll see you in the next video.